Coming to you from the center of the universe in Lipsick, Wisconsin, it's the Hot Rod Tuesday podcast.
Hey guys, it's Tom. I'm here with Kyle, and we got a special guest today. And we just got done getting a little bit of history from this gentleman. I am floored. We haven't had anybody of this caliber on our podcast. It's incredible. So I'd like to welcome to the show Jerry Newman. Jerry, once again, welcome to our podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So Jerry is, we walked into his house, and there's drag racing pictures everywhere. There's a picture on the wall that says, it's got a picture of a dragster, and it says, "I rolled into a burning line of fire. I poured nitro down, and the flames got higher." And I was singing that every time I looked at it, so I thought that was pretty cool,
me too.
So, Jerry, you're famous for being Mr. Nitro helper. You talked about helping several Nitro cars throughout the world, or throughout the country and throughout the world, really. Now, I just want to go back to basics first before we go into all the history and all that other stuff. People have seen Nitro or cackle cars at car shows, and they've been to the NHRA drag races or IHRA where they see Nitro cars. So what is the biggest difference between, or what is the process of the Nitro switchover? How do you run the Nitro? What things have to be done to the engine? Things like that.
You're talking about cackle cars?
Cackle cars. Yeah, we'll start with the cackle cars.
Well, it's gotten so specific now. When it first started about in the late 90s, it was a bunch of guys that had their old cars sitting in the garage.
Yep.
And came out. And so they ran them just like they did in the 1960s. Well, of course, fuel systems and just all technology has gone so much more than what that was in the 60s. So I got involved with... the first car was for Steve Anderson out of Minneapolis, which is the Tom Hoover car that he was restoring.
Okay.
It was the actual car that Tom ran in '66. And Steve took unbelievable about 10 years to replicate this thing, to finish it off. And it's so perfect for 1966. And even had a block and heads in it, cast iron, but were prepared by Ed Donovan for his race car in 1966. It had a camshaft, a Crowler camshaft in it from 1966, and everything was just done. He wanted it absolutely perfect, and it was. So then this cackle thing came about, and he asked me, I hadn't been involved with the car then, but he asked me if I could do a combination for it and do the fuel system for it and make sure it was all okay, because he wanted to cackle it.
Okay.
So I did. I agreed, and I always had a thing about the Surfers dragster from 1966, because it had a sound like no other fuel dragster in 1966. And I always thought if I did a cackle car, I would try to replicate that. And so I said, well, I want to make it sound like the Surfers if I can. And, okay, but just didn't want to really get too far away from 1966. And I said, well, yeah, but the Surfers were 1966. But one thing the Surfers did is they progressed into using 98% nitro.
What is it? And just for those of us who don't know, what is a typical blend that you'd...
In those days, you were in the 70s and middle 80s. And there was some guys that experimented with up in the 90s, but the blocks and the equipment wasn't that strong. And you pretty much made junk really fast.
And that's mixed with methanol, correct?
Yeah, and other things.
Okay.
Yeah.
But basically it's methanol and nitromethane.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Back in those days, there's a few guys experimented with hydrazine and some things like that, but it would actually blow the crankshaft out of the bottom of the block. And
a little bit of cylinder pressure.
Yeah. And so we did that, put that together, and it turned out quite nice. And again, we were in the 83 to 85% range. So we went out to California to the Hot Rod Reunion at Bakersfield, and Steve Gibbs of NHRA really was a good friend of Tom Hoover, and he really liked that particular car. So we were kind of a little bit of a featured car. And on Friday nights, they have a cocktail party and a awards thing at the Doubletree Hotel in Bakersfield. And they bring in 10 cars from the revival, because there would be as many as 50 cars for
Sure.
that. And to feature them, and they would all start, one by one. And so we went to that. We were on that, and we were the last car to start. And well, all I can say is, compared to those other guys who had been doing it for about 10 years already, we sounded kind of like a big block Chevy with bad mufflers, but we were authentic.
Yeah.
And so that was it. Did Bakersfield, came back. About 2 weeks later, Steve called me and said, "Hey, can you do something with this thing?" "What do you mean?" He goes, "I was kind of embarrassed out there." He says, "You told me you can tune it up. I want you to tune it up." So started on a journey, and it's been 10 years now. A guy by the name of Greg Barta bought the car from Steve. And when I was talking to Greg, and Greg burned Nitro in the 70s as a crewman on a funny car. So he was quite knowledgeable. Fantastic machinist, owns a machine shop. He can build and do anything. So he bought the Hoover car. And so we were talking about engines and combinations and those kind of things. And I said, if you want, I can tune this thing up quite a bit. Steve didn't want to get out of control, but he says, "You do whatever you want."
Gave you the green light.
And so we did. We changed the compression ratio, and I designed a camshaft and different fuel pump and different nozzle volumes, and hopped up the magneto some. And most of the Cackle cars nowadays are 121 to 123, 124 decibels. And we check them 10 feet away from the motor.
Okay.
And either the side or behind them. They're a little quieter in front, but normally I go 90 degrees to the side. And so you got a couple of about 5 cars that are in 125, 126. And those are guys that are burning 98, 100% nitro too.
Yep.
A lot of guys from the old days are still on 85 to 88 in that kind of range, because
Sure.
that's what they burn. That's what the combination was set up for. And a few years ago at Irwindale, California, at the Nitro Revival, I hit 129 decibels, and with Steve's car,
No,
the Hoover car.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't 1 decibel twice as loud as a decibel before?
The curve goes up. You're
Yeah.
correct, and it's not a straight line. It's a curve. And so, yes, to have them by 3 decibels is quite a lot. And so I'm quite proud of that.
Yeah.
And again, it's been a journey. It's got the 4th camshaft design in it, and
Okay.
fuel system. I keep improving the fuel system and putting more volume in it and more pressure. And of course, it's all cast iron yet. We don't want to put the crank on the ground. But,
Yeah, that would not be a good day.
it's embarrassing.
So I just have a couple questions now. I've watched it happen. You start the cars on methanol?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And then what's the process from the time the car gets started? And I notice you guys are checking cylinder temperatures or exhaust temperatures. You're checking different things. What are you looking at as that engine builder or as that crew chief when you fire these nitro cars up?
Well, on the Cackle cars, we're basically we're putting a little bit of heat in them. And another big thing is the lubrication. We're getting everything going on, because what happens is when you put it on the nitromethane, particularly a large percentage and volume, it's really hard on the rod bearings. And in the older days, we would tune the cars by how much we flatten the rod bearings. We check the rod bearings every run. You take the pan off, you check them. If the rod bearings aren't flat, you're not running it hard enough. And if you flatten them 2 or 3 or 4 thousandths, that's pretty good. And of course, if you widen them out 10, 12 thousandths, they're probably junk, and maybe the motor is too, and you got to do some work on the fuel system.
Oh my gosh.
But so anyways, my real thing is, guys thought about putting heat in it. And another thing is, if you burn a lot of percentage, if you're up over 95%, it doesn't like to start on that, and it doesn't like to run on that when it's cold. And in fact, with our combination with 98 in it, you can hear the sound change on nitro when we're running on nitro, but as it builds more heat in the motor. And we'll run it, we do it timed, and of course we got an unbelievably big fuel tank in it, because when we started this, everything had 5-gallon fuel tanks in it.
Right.
That's what we ran. And we ended up running it out of fuel pretty quick. So now it's got a 10.5-gallon fuel tank in it.
Okay.
But after you've got it running on the nitro, after you warmed it on the alcohol and running it on the nitro, with the 98%, you can actually hear the sound as it gets hotter and starts burning the nitro more efficiently. So to answer your question, it was just really to warm the motor a little bit.
Okay.
Get the lubrication in and out of it, and that kind of stuff. So now what we do it is we just put a hose into the injector from an alcohol bottle. A lot of guys do it by suction. I prefer to do it by pressure. We run just a couple of pounds, but I like it to be rich on alcohol also.
Okay.
It's better for the cylinder walls and the rings and that kind of stuff. I've run into some issues with race cars that we would warm on alcohol, and the motor would get hot. It's hard on the rings and stuff.
Okay.
By using the vacuum system.
Okay.
And so I always ran pressure, and just a warm-up tank, and we put 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds of pressure on it.
Okay.
And we run a jet in the line. That way you can just open the valve and walk away from it. A lot of guys vary it, don't have a jet in it, and then they're moving the lever up and down, and the idle is going up and down and all that kind of stuff. I right away just put a jet in it, and that way you just flip the lever over and it runs and idles, and it's going to go. So you do that, and you got, we run it most times a minute, maybe a minute and a half on the alcohol. And then you just reach down and grab the fuel shut off and turn the fuel shut off on and turn the alcohol bottle off, or pull the hose out if you're on vacuum.
Sure.
And now you're on nitro.
Yep.
And then we run it, we like to run it, not quite, maybe a minute or so on nitro, because it gets much hotter on nitro than the methanol. So we get some heat in it that way, and then before we hit the throttle to put on the show.
So when you're doing these demonstrations, what's your favorite part watching the people? So you see the people haven't seen nitro before, and you do a throttle whack, or they get in the fumes. It's always fun to watch that.
Oh, unbelievable.
Does it get old?
No, no. The new people who don't know,
Right.
Well, first of all, let me start out. So you started, everybody's around the car. And so you started up on the methanol. And some people move back right away. Other people, that's okay. And so then you switch it over, and about half the crowd moves back right away. Some don't; they're tough guys. And I say we get some heat in it, and then you whack the throttle.
Yeah.
We did it. Doc Holliday owned several bars, and before the Brainerd race in Minnesota, we would do a startup party at his bars. And the all-time record is Apple Valley, Minnesota. And we start this thing up about 10:30 at night. Oh. You want to see flames,
I'm sure they did.
And of course, I got my jack stand tune-up in it, because rather than 88%, I got 95 in it, And so anyways, you get ready and you watch the crowd. And these are all people. 90% of them don't know about drag racing or nitro. You whack the throttle, and we've had people fall over backwards on the people behind him. And it's great. We had one gentleman who was standing pretty close. He was pretty brave. And black kid, teenager probably. And we whacked the throttle. He jumped in the air and took off running away from the car. So then he came back and was standing there looking it all over when we had shut it off. And I said, well, did you enjoy that? He says, I thought the damn thing was blowing up. So he holds the record yet for that one. But that one and falling on the people behind him, yes.
Yeah.
But it's fun to watch the crowd slowly move backward too.
Yeah.
You know, and there'll be 2 or 3 tough people, but we've got a video from the car show in Lannon a few years ago, and there's a guy standing behind. It was behind the Telstar, and probably about 10 feet behind him, holding a beer. And when Doc whacked the throttle, this guy threw the beer straight up in the air, and gave him a bath and everybody else around him. It was. He's got the record for that.
You know, that was probably the same year I was standing back behind, and it was the first startup of the day at the Lannon show, and we had just got something to eat at the food truck that was right there,
Yep.
and it started up the Telstar car, and the guy next to me, he's like, "Oh my God, this is so cool! This is so cool!" I said, "Just wait." Why? Just wait. He walks up. He's got his phone in his hand. He's taking pictures. And then the nitro switchover happened. I looked at my wife. I said, "Watch." And as soon as the nitro switch over, then this guy's just ecstatic. And then they did a throttle whack, and I thought he was going to dance. It's always fun to watch.
That's my favorite part of the Landon show, watching the nitro cars. And when you go to pro races and watch funny and top fuel cars do throttle whacks.
Sure.
That's just the funniest thing, watching the people that don't know about it.
We got an interesting thing there, too, is Greg Barta's got it's a recreation car of the Chisler.
Okay.
Chris Chisler, we've had it there.
Yep.
And it was kind of interesting, though, in that the guy that built it was out in California, Ron Johnson. And, again, it was built pretty mild. It burned 80% in it and that kind of stuff. And so when Greg bought it, we naturally took it apart and put the Hoover tune-up in it. Not quite, but not quite this strong camshaft. But anyways, quite great. But it's got headers on it that are called weed burners rather than the zoom pipes.
Yep, they go straight out.
Go straight out in the back. And nitro is a very heavy chemical, and never realized that how it hugs to the ground, the fumes. So when we do all these cars, they all got zoom pipes on them now. So they're putting that all up in the air.
Right.
The Chisler car, straight out from the ground. The first time we started that thing up with a crowd, we had people all pretty close by, and they slowly start moving back. And they keep moving back to pretty soon there's nobody behind the car. And you got people wiping their eyes and all that kind of stuff, and never thought about it that the nitro is hanging low and not going up in the air. So that's another side effect of Cacklefest.
Yeah.
It always brings a tear to your eyes.
Yes, it sure does. Yeah.
All right. So we knocked all the fun stuff out here. Now I want to get back to your career in you have a very storied career with the IHRA. I mean, you showed us pictures here of some of the cars that you've been a part of, and the honors that you've had in the funny car world. So why don't you just give us a history of how it all started and what made you think, you know what, nitro is cool, I want to start messing with that stuff.
Well, went first to Union Grove Drag Strip in 1958 with a close friend and his older brother, and sat in the grandstand and thought that was pretty neat. I was already a car guy.
Sure.
And so when I got my first car, a 55 Chevy, 1961, I already bought a 302 Chevy short block out of a modified racer. It was real big here around all the dirt tracks here.
Yep.
So I bought that and put it in my 55 Chevy, and went to Union Grove and was running it there. just as a stocker. So it was not a big deal. I've never, ever been really interested in the driving or the competition. I'm the engineer.
Right.
I'm German, and I'm back to the what makes it work and how you can make it better, and it's always been that. So in 1962, I was at the racetrack. I was hung there every Sunday and hung out by a car. I was just looking at it. It was sitting on the trailer, and it was a twin-engine Chevy gas dragster called Engines Unlimited. And for a short period of time, it held the top speed record in the United States. Everybody knows John Peters and the freight train, but Peters held the record at, I believe, 178, and the Engines Unlimited from the Hot Rod Shop in Milwaukee went 181. And it's sitting out here in my shop. It's got drum brakes on it, 181 miles an hour.
Nope.
Two engines. It was kind of heavy, too. But anyways, this trailer guy
Those were iron engines, too.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, there was no aluminum then yet.
No, not 62. And so the trailer, the guy was there with the trailer, and I was standing there looking at the car, and he said, "Hey, kid, give me a hand unloading this thing," because the other crew members, team owners, hadn't shown up yet. So I help him unload it. He says, "You know how to take spark plugs out?" And I go, "Yeah." So he says, "Start taking the spark plugs out." Of course, there were 16 of them.
Sure.
So did that. So anyways, that was it. I was hanging around with those guys and got to go up on the starting line with them and that. And 55 Chevy wasn't much after that.
I suppose not.
Yeah. And then in 63, there was two other guys, Andrews and Fisher, from Milwaukee, and they were Nitro with a small block Chevy, burned like 25 to 30% in it in those days. You couldn't put much in a small block Chevy. They wouldn't take it, didn't have the cylinder heads, didn't have the block strength. And so we somehow I got hanging around or with them, I don't remember, but I got involved with those guys. And one thing is that, of course, I had some chemistry and stuff in school, and mixing nitro was a real pain in the rear end. And so the guy says, "Do you know how to mix nitro? I'm going to show you how to mix nitro." And I go, "Sure, okay." And so I pride myself on my record that I started pouring nitro into a supercharged engine in 1963. And so this is my 63rd year of mixing nitro.
That's something.
Went on to be involved with Angus Chemical Company that they're owned by Dow, but that made nitromethane. And I did a lot of research work with their engineers on different admixtures and different things you could put in nitromethane, and learned quite a bit. And
what was used for nitromethane before it was introduced into racing? Was there a use for it before, or has it always just been a fuel?
No, there's 347 uses for nitromethane at the moment. It's primarily a solvent. That's what it was. The Germans were the one that used it for rocket fuel. That's where it came for our combustion and that. But it's a chemical that's used in so many other products. Heart medicine, Tagamet. It's in Tagamet. And it's in all kinds of different chemical processes. It's used as a solvent. What was big when we started using it in the 60s is it was a solvent for cleaning ink in printing presses. Huh. And that's where we used to buy bootleg nitro from a guy in Milwaukee that had a connection to a guy that ran a printing press. And you could buy nitro when it was for commercial use for like half of what it was for racing.
Typical.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
And, well, part of the deal was for using it in motorsports, it required more insurance by Dow, by commercial solvents. Sure. And so if you were going to be a distributor and they were going to wholesale it to you to sell it to the racers, you had to provide the insurance.
Okay.
And it would be more than double the cost of the barrel of fuel just for the insurance.
Sure.
And ultimately, if you want to come full circle, that's why Angus quit selling nitromethane for motorsports in the United States, both after Oklahoma, because that involved the three barrels of nitro in with the fertilizer.
Okay.
And also when Homeland Security came out here some years ago and put all kinds of limits, I think it was about 60 different chemicals, but one of them was nitromethane. And they made it illegal to possess more than its weight, 400 pounds, but it works out to be 42 gallons. And so now that's where, or you have to be licensed.
Okay.
So to get a 55-gallon drum of nitro, you got to be registered with the federal government.
Okay.
And so that's really jacked up the price then.
Okay. One other little side note here. Properties of nitro. Engines running on full alcohol. And let's just say it makes 2,000 horsepower. Okay, or 1,000 horsepower.
Yeah.
If you add nitro to that,
Triple.
you're going to triple the horse. Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just feel so small. But go ahead, Jerry. So you're in 19. You were talking about putting these cars together in the 60s, and then where did it progress from there?
Well, I had my own cars. First sponsored by the Hot Rod Shop of Milwaukee, and then ultimately myself. And ran. We had the UDRA Fueler circuit, which was a match race circuit, and then of course some NHRA races. But NHRA races never paid much. You actually had to match race to make money to run NHRA, unless you had a sponsor.
Sure.
But sponsors weren't big in those days until Winston got into it. Once Winston got in 1975, absolutely changed all of motorsports.
Okay.
There was an article by Ralph Seagraves of Winston, R.J. Reynolds, and he did an article for the Wall Street Journal about motorsports was the best advertising opportunity there was. And you got such a big return on your dollar because you were advertising to people to buy your products, but they were also fans of the racing. And they would support you because you were helping the racing.
It's
and
true.
Sponsorships took off. It took off like crazy. And really got big then in the late 70s and from now on,
Sure.
Still to this day. Now it's been a real problem because it's diluted so bad with the internet and with streaming.
Mm-hmm.
Because where do you invest your advertising money?
Yeah, there's so many different avenues.
So many different avenues. So it's actually getting pretty hard right now to get any amount of large,
Sure.
millions of dollars of sponsorship.
Right, because you don't have every TV on with your sport on.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go back to the match racing. You talked about match racing.
Yeah.
When the big guys came into town, like
Yeah.
the Garlets and Connie Coletta and
Sure.
McEwen, all these other guys, how big of a feather in the hat was it for you when you would put those guys on the trailer?
It was great if it was at Union Grove.
Okay.
Because it's always nice to look good at home.
Right.
And in '73 on a Friday night, I beat all of them and I won that. And that felt pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
But otherwise, you just were match racing them all over the United States. And again, I was never a big guy for winning. People get crazy. I got to win. I wanted to go down the racetrack, not hurt anything, and not cost anything. Because if it did, I was done. I was a construction worker running a nitro car. That's pretty hard to do, actually. And if you put pistons in it or hurt the block or whatever, you might not race for the next month until you can get up enough money to buy the parts to do it again. So my thing, and fortunately now I've got known for it, and I am able to get them down the racetrack and be competitive, but not turn into a bunch of scrap.
Sure.
And but it takes. You got to be careful, unless you got a lot of money like the pros and stuff, where you can just pour everything to it
And hope for the best.
You gotta be very precise, and So, anyways, what happened is I ran my own cars until 1978 and 77. And then I have another life in construction. And corporate America came calling and offered me a position that I couldn't resist. But it was for a national firm. I was just always in Milwaukee working for
Sure.
general contractor, doing things here. My most famous project here in Milwaukee was I did the catalytic converter plant for General Motors,
Oh, okay.
1973 to 1975. And so that was quite successful. And fortunately, in 73, I also had my best year with a top fuel car. So that was quite the deal. But fortunately, my construction projects normally ran fairly smooth also. And I had this national firm find me and offered me a position I couldn't really resist, but it was nationally. I was going to move to Florida and be in charge of the southern half of the United States. And this was the largest architectural engineering firm in the United States at the time. And so I did that. So that was the end of the drag racing. Quite a famous race car driver and very good friend of mine, Carl Olson, worked, after he quit driving, worked for NHRA. He was vice president for NHRA. And primarily in charge of the manufacturers program, which were all the sponsors putting
Sure.
people in, putting money into the racing. And so I worked for him, NHRA, part-time at about half a dozen, just the bigger national events. And with dealing with the manufacturers, the sponsors, and that kind of stuff, I got to tour a lot of times when we got the executives. Ford Motor Company, I can remember taking them for a ride. We'd ride them around on a golf cart, and we'd show them how the spectators come in, take them from the parking all the way in through the grandstands and all that kind of stuff. Then we'd show them how it was with a racer. And we'd bring them in the back gate and show them the racer and where you would do technical, and then into
Sure.
the pits and what that all was, and then into the staging lanes, And so I took a guy one time by the name of Edsel Ford.
Never heard of him.
Yeah. And showed him NHRA drag racing. But so I did that from 1978 until 1983. And by then I had been moved back to corporate headquarters. I was in charge of the whole United States. And corporate headquarters was in Bloomington, Minnesota. And so I'm in the office building one day overlooking the Minnesota River, and I had become friends with Doc Holliday back in the 60s, because when we were running a small block Chevy on Nitro, we were supercharged, but they were running it injected on Nitro. And in those days, because of the tires and that kind of stuff, you could be competitive with a Chevy. So they would come down here and race at Union Grove from Minnesota, or we'd go up there and race up there, and just because of association, we became friends. So I'm in Minnesota, and I'm looking out the window there, and I thought, I wonder, Doc Holliday's around here someplace. I think I'm going to see if I can look him up. So I did, found the address. He owned a roadway trailer company, built race car trailers and custom car trailers and stuff. Found him. I had phone books in those days.
Sure.
And found him and looked, and he was on the other side of the Minnesota River, about 4 miles away from me, where corporate headquarters.
You could almost see him from where you were
Almost. So I went down there one afternoon and found him and started talking with him and old times and things. And he says, well, why don't you come match racing with us? Because he had a funny car in those days. Bill Shifsky was tuning it for him. And why don't you come hang out with us, and burn some nitro? And so I did that. And the nice thing about it was I was flying around the United States going to construction projects, and I would just route myself through wherever they were match racing, or if there was a national event or something,
Sure.
and hang out. And 1984, Bill Shifsky was getting much more. He also had a trailer business, fabricating business, and he was getting way too busy and didn't want to travel anymore. so he wasn't going to go on the road with Doc. And so Doc says, "Do you want to do it? Can you do it?" I go, "Well, I've tuned Nitro dragsters. I've never tuned a funny car, but can't be that much different." And so that's when it started. And I started with Doc. And as it worked out, in 1985, I left the architectural engineering company, and I started a construction company, consulting company, primarily as an expert witness in construction litigation.
Okay.
But then I could come and go as I wanted.
Sure.
And so I would spend 3 or 4 days in construction litigation, and then 3 or 4 days going to a racetrack or working on a race car or whatever. And so we did that till 1991. And then again, corporate America called, and I had an opportunity to go overseas. And same firm that I had been for, the large architectural engineering firm, I was supposed to go to build a cancer treatment hospital for the Chernobyl victims because they were dying like crazy, which was really in Ukraine. Now, everybody knows the name, but that's where I was going to go.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Chernobyl was in Ukraine because it was part of the Soviet Union.
Right.
And but they were dragging their feet on giving us a down payment, and you don't go anywhere 30% down because you don't have legal systems and you don't have things, and you're the outsider.
Yeah.
You're not going to collect,
Yep. You got to cross your T's and dot your I's.
Yeah. And so then I was going to go do that. I was working on a hospital down in Tyler, Texas, and ended up going to Indonesia because we got a large project in Indonesia, and they gave us the money. So I went to Indonesia, and I was there for 4.5 years. I had signed a 5-year contract. When the currency collapsed, I had 2 offices there, one in Surabaya, one in Jakarta. We opened an office in Cairo, Egypt, because the Middle East was booming so much, Dubai and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And so I opened the office. I was flying back and forth from Indonesia to Egypt, and did that until 99 when my contract was up, and they wanted me to spend another 3 years. But I had a very good life in Indonesia, but Egypt was pretty rough.
Sure.
I lived in 5-star hotels, so I can't complain there, but boy, Egypt you can have.
Well, I'll make a note of that, and I'll try not to put that on my list of places to go.
Yeah, it's interesting. I saw the Sphinx and pyramids up close because, again, there I was working for the federal government. We had both in Indonesia and in Egypt, we had USAID money, which you may have heard about recently, which was kind of a gift system to other countries. And so, but I was dealing with the management of countries. I worked in Egypt for a little while trying to bring a Formula One race, and for Egypt. There was quite a bit of competition in the Middle East for somebody to get one. But it was nice. I would go to Formula One meetings in Paris. So that wasn't too bad.
I can't say wow enough. Should hear my inner voice right now.
But so then I came back to the United States late 99, middle 99. And I bought a motorhome and was just going to travel around the United States for a while. And Jack Wyatt, funny car racer, is a guy that I switched over to Nitro in 87. So 99, I traveled around the United States going to the NHRA races and IHRA races with Jack and did that. And a headhunter found me and got hired to build a new hospital out in California. So I did that for 3 years. decided to come back to my home in Wisconsin that I had been away from since 1977. So came back here and was going to build some houses here and some stuff, and ended up being in charge of, in my hometown here, I was village president. My grandfather was one of the early founders in the 1880s.
Okay.
And so I wanted to live in Lannon, and that's where I am. In 1980, 2006, we were at the drag race in Las Vegas. And that's when Nostalgia Funny Cars had just been getting started. And Del Worsham was real big in it. He and his dad built a replica Blue Max.
Yep.
And so they were doing it. And I had been good friends with Del when he started, because they started running at IHRA. And so I was good friends with Del. And so Del saw Doc and I standing together there. We were just there at the same time. And Del said, to Doc, you still got the car and everything? He goes, oh, yeah, I got all of it sitting on top of my office. And he says, you got to do this. He says, you got to do this. You guys had such a good combination, and these Nostalgia Funny Cars are pretty much what that combination was in the middle 80s. And he said, you would do great with that. You got to do this. So, okay. So
Coming from Del Worsham, that's...
Yeah. And so Doc says, do you want to do it? And I go, well, you got everything? He says, oh, yeah, I got the car, and, a lot of parts and stuff are all sitting in my shop. So, long story short, we put it together and started Nostalgia Funny Car Racing. And I've been doing that. Now that morphed into Cackle Cars. And so...
And at present day, I was talking to you earlier, you're part of how many Nitro cars throughout the country?
Currently, right at the moment, well, if you include in Europe too, in Australia, 12.
Well, I wasn't including Europe and Australia, but because I didn't know.
Yeah.
And one of those cars is going to be Brian Coleman's 31 Chrysler Coupe that we're going to have at our Waupun show.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I told you that story when I went to the city hall when we were talking about putting this car show together, and we're looking at things to do for the attraction. I always wanted to have a Cackle car.
Okay.
And they're all, oh, this is neat. This is cool. And I'm just kind of giving well, they started and it gets loud. And I said, wait a minute. Let me back up. And I told the story about what it felt like for me to watch it. The hair went up on my arms. And as it is right now again, because I'm talking about the Nitro car, hair went up on my arms, and then I got animated, and I was telling the people in the committee about how excited I am to have this car here. And that's what sold them. And they're like, yeah, we have to have that here. And then I looked at the police chief. And I said, just so you know, you're going to get calls at 11 and you're going to get calls at 1 because Waupun's never seen this before. And we're very, very excited to have that. And I wanted to thank you publicly for helping me get that done. But
yeah, it was quite the thing because I was one of the founders of the Lannon Car Show.
Yep.
In 2006, 2005, we were doing our 75th anniversary and of incorporation. Lannon had been around in the 1860s and 70s. But I was chairman of the committee then for the 75th anniversary. And I was talking with Dave Bartelt, lifetime friend and car guy in Lannon, about what we should do, events for the 75th anniversary. Fireworks, live music, all that kind of stuff. And Dave Bartelt said, why don't we have a car show? Because Lannon in the 60s was quite a car town. We, now this is all rumors, but there was quite a bit of street racing going on.
Not on Main Street where it's super straight, right?
Well, more on Good Hope Road where it wasn't quite so populated.
Oh, okay.
And then if we go all the way, I'm sure statute of limitations are gone now, but we used to go on Granville Road. We'd go into Big Boys on 76th and Appleton. That's where the Milwaukee Street Racer guys hung out. And then we go out on Granville Road. And there was over a mile on Granville Road where there was nothing but a few driveways. No cross streets, no nothing. And we actually had white marks painted on the side of the pavement for a quarter mile.
Yeah.
And that's all rumors now.
Yep.
And so anyways, we were quite a car town, and we had fast cars. And the building right there on Main Street, where it is, that was my grandfather's blacksmith shop. And so that was also Car Central, because my cousin Gary Jakes, who's the same age, and we were all hot rodders, and we'd work on our cars at the shop there. And so Dave says, we ought to do a car show. I go, well, if you do the work, put it all together, sure. And so that's what we did. And our first car show in Lannon at the reunion, or at the 75th, we had 35 cars. Now we've had 900.
Yeah. Yep, we put that on our schedule every year of one not to miss. The Lannon show is second to none. It's got a little bit of everything for everyone, and like I said, Kyle came there with the Nitro cars, and I know he was a big fan of that. I don't know if you want to add anything to that. What you think of the Nitro? Just your thoughts on the Lannon show.
Well, just anywhere where there's Nitro cars and exposing that to people who wouldn't normally see them.
Yeah,
it's always a fun time.
Well, and that was why I brought them there then. Ultimately, we didn't have them for the 75th, but I had these other cars I was getting all involved with. And so I thought it would kind of be cool to have Nitro cars right there, my grandfather's shop and blacksmith shop, and right on the corner of Main Street. So I talked to some of my customers, and they said, oh, sure, So, and we've had, as you know, we've had as many as 6 Nitro cars there now.
There's been a few. Yep.
Because I thought, well, car shows, you don't see Nitro cars. And so the first year we had 2, and then after that we started building, and I normally had 4.
Sure.
And so it was quite a pleasure for me.
So I'm going to go back to this, the street racing that may or may not have happened. And I've always heard a story from my brother-in-law, who's just about 20 years older than me, okay? And heard a story from him, how he had a GTO way back when. He would have been part of the Milwaukee crew.
Yeah. And
that there was Chris Karamessinas would be out there quite often, because he was my brother-in-law's Greek, and he knew Chris Karamessinas, and the way I understood is that Chris may or may not have been out there. And no, okay,
no,
all right,
be way beneath him. Our first Chrysler engine, when we went away from the Chevrolets, we bought from Chris, pan to injector, complete turnkey motor.
Okay.
And I spent a lot of time in his shop on the south side of Chicago. Yeah.
Kyle, you got to tell him about the time he got Chris's autograph.
Oh, yeah, because I did send in for his autograph probably 7 or 8 years ago. He sent back a couple of pictures of his car signed, and he put a bunch of his junk mail in the envelope too, and sent a bunch of his junk mail over here with us.
Yeah.
So we got his mail flyers in the mail that he didn't want.
Yeah.
We ended up getting them.
Oh yeah, he was what a spectacular guy.
Yeah.
I can't describe the Greek. Yeah.
We met him a few times at different races. And
I'll give you a quick one. We were down in his shop one night. He did the machine work on our blocks, and we were down there picking up a block. And he said, let's go to the bar. So we go to the bar on Cicero Avenue, which was Cicero Avenue already in those days. This is the 60s. And we go, and the Greek's got a Cadillac convertible. And we go there in the Cadillac convertible. And we pull up in front of this bar. And pulls up right up in the street, double parks. And we all get out, I go, where are you going to park it? He goes, right here, in the street. Okay. So we go in the bar and have a few drinks, not many. It was quite an experience because I was not 21. And so we come out, and I figure for sure the car's gone, And here there's 3 squad cars around it. I go, okay, here we go. Oh, no, they were directing traffic around the Greek's car. So, yes, that was the Greek on the south side of Chicago.
And chances are my dad may have been a bartender, because he used to be a bartender at a bar on Cicero Avenue in Chicago, and he had a lot of crazy stories. But That's great. Yeah. So you've had a storied career. You just said before that you've been tuning these Nitro cars for 63 years. Is there one moment in your mind that stands out of being whether it's the biggest achievement, I can't believe that just happened, whatever? Is there one moment that you'll never ever forget because it just affected you in a certain way?
Actually, two.
Okay.
1973 on a Friday night at Union Grove, Wisconsin, it wasn't the Olympics of drag racing in those days, but it was one of the biggest Nitro events in the United States at that time.
Okay.
Prudhomme and that, and I was friends with Tommy Ivo, and so I beat him in the final, which was kind of great. And so we won the race, against all these big show guys, and so that was great. And we were standing to get paid. Metzler had a house there, and we have to go in there to get paid. And I was standing outside. There'd be a line of everybody waiting to get paid. And I'm standing there with Tommy Ivo, and he says, "Wow, what a great night for you, looking good at home." And I go, "Oh, yeah, it's fantastic." I said, "It was kind of lucky," I said, though, because one guy smoked the tires against us, another guy red light against us, and we actually beat him in the final legitimately. I said, so, I kind of backed into it. He says, "They never write that on the check." Okay. So that was a big one. The other one was in 1986, Dallas, Texas, Motorplex, when it was brand new. And we went down there, Doc with the funny car, and we had been running IHRA and doing quite well at IHRA. And I had come on to a concept with the fuel system, the way we put the fuel in the motor with the nozzle combination and pressures and some things. And I had been working on this, and I got it to really work excellent. And we were doing good at IHRA with it and not hurting parts. That was a big thing. It made the motor run very even. It was real normal to hurt one or two or three pistons a run. And I got it to where we could run it and it wouldn't hurt it. And so we had been running quite well. This was when, say, 580s were common in a funny car. And some guys would run 570s. But getting into the 560s, there was virtually only one or two cars, I think. And then came the 550s. And Roland Leong ran the first 550 at Pomona and ran a 558 or something like that. And so,
you remember his car, Kyle? Roland Leong?
Yeah, Hawaiian.
The Hawaiian?
Oh, the Hawaiian. Okay, I know that. But the real name, no.
Yeah. And what was great about that is at that time, a guy by the name of Rick Johnson from Texas was driving it, who was also a good friend. So that was a great deal. Anyway, so we go to Dallas the weekend before in Bristol, Tennessee. We ran a 562. And a lot of people would say, "Oh, the clocks are hot at IHRA and they're not real," and all that kind of stuff. And your old days, track promoters would do it. The clocks were hot, right. Didn't have scoreboards and they'd announce all kinds of stuff. But anyways, we went a 562. Didn't hurt a thing, ran perfect. And had fantastic 60-foot times because this fuel system thing I came up with really increased the 60-foot time. Motor would respond, it would rev up quicker. It was really, really worked well. And so we go to Dallas, Texas, first one, Motorplex, fantastic place. And I was walking in up the staging lanes to run the car, and I was walking with Bernie Federley, quite famous crew chief.
Sure.
And he was with Ed McCullough in those days. And we would run them quite a bit at IHRA.
Yep.
And the weekend before, they were with us at Bristol.
Okay.
So I'm walking up in the staging lanes with Bernie Federley, and he says, "Boy, that thing sure ran good last week." I go, "Oh, yeah, He said, "You change anything?" I said, "No." Normally you do.
Yeah.
And I said, "No." I said, "I'm just going to run it again and see if it'll go a 60, He says, "Look out." And went 559. Shocked everybody. I mean, I don't think at that particular first qualifying session, I don't think anybody was in the 60s. And we went 5:59. Never had gone faster than like 2:56 or something like that. Went 262, 5:59.
Holy smokes.
And that, as you can tell, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it for me.
That was the pinnacle.
Oh, man.
Well, that's amazing.
Tom Hoover came over, and what'd you hurt? I go, I hurt nothing.
I just got to change the oil.
Yeah, and I had 8 spark plugs on the injector board, and I go, there's the spark plugs, and normally you burn the spark plugs out every run,
Right.
and you could run them again. And he goes, that's bullshit. You put different plugs up there. Don't give me that, and turned around and walked away. But it was real, So, yeah, that's, to this day, I'll never replace that. The feeling was unbelievable.
I'm floored. Well, Jerry, thank you so much for taking time with us to tell us about your past, to tell us about the drag racing, to tell us about the cackle cars, and about the just amazing life that you've had. And I'm hoping we can get you back on here. It'd be even better if I could get you up in Leipzig for a car show once this summer. That would be even better yet. So if we could do that, that'd be wonderful. But otherwise, thank you very much for taking the time, talking to us. And like I said, we hope to talk to you again soon.
Yeah, well, I'm real proud of the Brian Coleman car because it's the only one like it in the world. And we've gotten it to perform quite well now in the last year and a half, and we made some changes over the winter that I think it's going to do pretty good, and we're headed to Dallas, Texas in a few weeks, back to the Motorplex.
Well, there you go. Go kick their ass again, huh?
I don't know. We won 2 races last year with it, and most people didn't think it would ever qualify. So
yeah. I watched that car. I think he was at the Meltdown Drags probably 10 years ago, I believe.
Well,
I'm assuming that was a car. I was always a big fan of that car. But, yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing the stories and to following along on social media and things like that.
Yeah.
But, all right, Jerry, thank you very much for taking the time again. And like I said, hopefully we'll talk soon.
Okay, thank you.
Well, guys, that was an interview with Jerry Newman. What a life, what a history. I don't even know what to think, Kyle. What would you like to add to that?
Well, it was a really quick afternoon at his place.
It was.
I mean, just story after story after story, name drop after name drop. It's like he's pretty much done it all when it comes to Nitro.
Yep. Yeah, the one story that we neglected to talk about, and we talked about on the way home, was the Cruz Pedregon story, where I think it was at Snap-on headquarters, right?
Yeah.
And the Cruz fired up his funny car, the Snap-on funny car, and Jerry was there with one of his cars, and he said they ran that one was like a 96% nitro.
I don't remember what the details, but
it was a huge amount of nitro, and they got a picture of Cruz Pedregon, his fingers in his ears, because he said the car was really, really loud. There's more verbiage than that, but we'll just leave it at that. But yeah, I mean, this guy has lived a storied career, like built big buildings all over the world, and then came back here to run a nitro car. Man, what a life. And Jerry, if you're listening, thanks for inviting us into your house and allowing us to talk to you for the afternoon.